Hello and welcome to the first episode of Voices of the Valley podcast. My name is Chad Licht. I'm the host of this podcast, and today we have a very important guest. As a lot of you guys know, I've been writing a ton of articles following the Elizabeth Forward School Board, so I felt that it was very important to go straight to the source of everything coming out of the board, and that is the school board president, Mr. Tom Sharkey. Before this starts, I think it's very important that the whole idea for this cast today is to stop the misinformation that's happening in our schools, outside of it, in the community, everywhere. We hear a lot of things about numbers that are going around and what we are spending. And I think it's really important for us to go to the sources like Mr. Sharkey or go to the sources like our finance director or a superintendent and figure out what the truth is. So, Tom, thank you for joining today. I think we have some pretty big things to talk about when it comes to our budgeting, our taxes, our students, our teachers, and all of that.
Thanks for having me, Chad.
So the first thing I really wanted to touch on was if we could have a bit of a background about you and everything that you've done. How long have you been on the board? How long have you been president? What are the things that are on your agenda and on your list of what you want to get done in this school?
Sure. So my background, I was a lifelong resident of Elizabeth Forward. I graduated in Elizabeth Forward in 1993. From Elizabeth Forward, I then went on to the University of Pittsburgh, and I graduated in 98 with a degree in pharmacy. I've been on the board now. This would be my 10th year. My first 2 years, I was vice president of the board. The last 8 years, I've been president of the board. My reasoning for being on the board and my interest with the board became when I had my two boys. I got to the point in my life where I wanted to give back to the community that I believe helped make me who I was, and I felt it was my turn to give back. I was concerned with the direction and the things that I saw in the district, in the community. After I graduated from high school, I kind of lost track of what's going on because life becomes busy. But when I decided to get more involved, I was concerned about the future of the district, the community, and our kids. My vision and what I've always wanted for the district was one of the main reasons I got on the board is I was on a committee before I got on the board. The purpose of that committee at that time was to sit through presentations from an architect that was contracted by the district at that time. There were several of us from the community that were on that committee. This took months to go through this. We went through all the different presentations. And at the end of that, there was a decision made. There were 8 different options for what to do with the high school. Okay. And the committee, we went through this, and the committee at the end collectively came to the agreement the best option was to build a new school based on the numbers and all of the information that was given to us. Okay. That was, I believe, 2007. At that time, some people instantly came out against that. I was extremely disappointed in the fact that people came out against something that had no information about any of those meetings, didn't attend those meetings, had no idea at that point in time what the cost associated was. I was disappointed that members of the community would be involved in this, take their time and effort. And then we had a former state rep and another person that eventually ran for the board that came out against it without any of that information. I was disappointed. That is what spurred me to decide to be involved with the district and get involved for the community and the kids. Okay. My vision, my concern has always been when I looked around that I didn't see a plan for the future of the district. I didn't see a facilities plan. I didn't see what does the future look like for our district when I compared us to other schools and other neighboring districts, other districts of the same socioeconomic as us. I didn't like what I saw. I was concerned that there was no plan. Okay, so my big push was always to have a plan for the future of Elizabeth Forward and move the district in that positive direction. I was also concerned from the financial standpoint of what I saw with the district and where we were as a community.
Now, you were on this committee before you got elected to the school board. How big of a financial benefit would it have been for our community if we would have built this school however many years ago?
So back then, what the numbers were to build a brand new school would have been $55 million. There would have been $8 million in plan-con money. So it would have cost the taxpayers $46 or $47 million. Back at that time, it was $237 a square foot to build. Now, post-COVID, it's $537 a square foot. So when you look back, it's cost the district probably in the community $100 million.
Wow. So we're now in a time where we obviously need this new building. I was a student at that school. It was my 11th grade year when that fire happened. So everybody understands that we need these new facilities. There should be no objection to that. And I think when you look at it at a broad standpoint, a majority of the community is okay with having these new buildings. I question why we're in this period right now where we have some people come to these meetings and almost fight back, saying that we don't need these buildings. And it gives you this sense, and I say this as a former student, that people feel that in our community, we almost don't deserve this. Like, we are not Thomas Jefferson, or we're not Bethel Park, we're not any of these other areas, so we don't deserve to have a facility as nice as this is going to be. I mean, I drive past this now with the brick that is on the front of this building. It's a beautiful school. And I just, it's insulting when you hear people say that we do not deserve to have something to this level that it's going to be. And I think that the students in this building that I have talked to, that I still know from before I graduated with, and I work with some of the programs still very closely to help these kids, they all are ready for this. Every student that you talk to will tell you it may stink that they might not be able to be in that building when it happens, but they can't wait to come back and see it. I made a post the other day. I was the class president my senior year, so I have a Facebook group of about 50, 60 students from my class, and it's all these students who want to join. And I made a post sharing the progress of the high school. Every single kid that saw it texted me after and said, "This is crazy. I can't believe that this is Elizabeth Ford." So it just blows my mind that we have people that are still against this whole project when we need this. I'm excited to see this auditorium. I'm excited to see this new gym. And I think it's going to be so beneficial to our community, because now we have a position where the community choir, they can come to our auditorium and use it. All of these sporting events can come to our gymnasium and use it. We are building a facility that is not just for the school district, it is for the community. We're going to have all these courts and all these fields, and everything is going to be at one central campus. Why are people so against this if this is going to be something where it's like, okay, I'm sitting in my house, I have nothing better to do, I'm going to go up to the high school and play on one of these courts or do something? And I just, to me, it blows my mind. Like, we can make something so good out of this project, but for some reason people want to put a stop to it.
There's a handful of people, Chad, and I think that is unfortunate. I think the majority of people that I talk to and speak with say this is so overdue. And I can't agree with you more that I have always been disappointed that people believe, there's a handful of people that believe our children don't deserve what other districts that are comparable to us have. And the reason why our kids have not gotten those things is because, unfortunately, in the past, there were bad financial decisions made that led us down a path that there was therefore no plan to address the aging infrastructure of our facilities. And I can't make it. You went through that high school, Chad. I went through that high school. What people don't see in that high school was the infrastructure and how bad it was, from the steam lines to the electric service to all of the utilities. Everything from that standpoint was at its end of life. It was at its end of life 20 years ago. And people closed their eyes and hoped for the best. And what ended up happening is your school got interrupted because of a fire.
Yeah.
Because we didn't address the things that have been documented for the last 20 years that needed to be addressed. Why didn't we address them? Because bad decisions were made in the past. Okay? It took the last 10 years to right the ship financially. When I got on the board, we were $3.2 million in the hole. $3.2 million. We had to take out a tax anticipation note every time in the summer to pay our bills. Okay? Over the course of the last 10 years, also when I got on the board, we have 6 buildings. We had no capital improvements plan. No plan to upgrade, maintain. There was no money put away. There was no budget to improve your buildings when you have 6 buildings. All of these things made absolutely no sense to me. How do you maintain a district? You can't. So, through those years, we worked on building a fund balance, having a capital improvements fund. Over the years, we went from a negative 3.2 fund balance to $11 million fund balance, all knowing we were going to have to maintain these buildings, to have a plan for the future. And I take it very personal that our children, when people come and say that our kids don't deserve what others deserve, okay? What we're doing up to high school isn't over the top. It is very fitting for Elizabeth Forward. Give our kids what they deserve every day to be proud of. And these kids, they go to all these other districts and they see what other districts have. When I talk about other districts, I'm not talking about Peters Township, Upper St. Clair. I'm talking about Ringgold. I'm talking about York. I'm talking about Southmoreland. They go to schools that are very similar to us, very similar socioeconomics, and they all have nicer facilities than us. So I can't agree with you more, Chad.
Yeah, and I honestly think that's something that gets lost in the mix too, is we have people saying that we're not Thomas Jefferson. And I think people understand that, so they try not to say that too much. But like you're saying, there are other schools who are on the same level financially,
if not less.
Yes, and they still have improved buildings.
Absolutely.
And like you're saying, that doesn't happen overnight. These schools weren't just like building these brand new things. They did not forget about certain things. They didn't just push stuff to the side and say, we'll worry about that 10 years
Correct.
from now whenever we have the money for it.
And they had a plan.
Yes.
If you take South Allegheny, I would say their facilities are nicer than ours. Okay, they have a new stadium. They have 2 sites. What did they do? They consolidated.
Mm-hmm.
They right-sized. I'd rather call it right-sized because they knew. Okay? South Park, all new buildings, same thing. South Park, right-sized.
Yeah.
Many districts have done this over the past 15 years because you have to have a plan for your adjustment and enrollment, which has just occurred across the whole country because of declining birth rate.
Yeah. Well, and not only those, we have all these schools in the past that are doing it, and some people would call that a mistake at some point, but you have schools doing it right now while we're doing it too. And when you look into their communities, there's nowhere near the amount of complaints that we are receiving. I mean, our community, I feel sometimes can be stuck in a time that we don't need to be in, and it is time for us to move forward. And I fully agree with what, when the students went back to school, the news was there. I forget what station it was. They were there and they said it's time for Elizabeth Forward to move forward.
Agreed. The students had it best.
Yes. And that is the greatest statement for us to make as a community because we have been stuck in a time. I mean, there's not a lot of schools that you go to that are still in a facility that is the age of Elizabeth Forward.
Agreed.
And there's not a lot of alumni associations that are able to walk into our building and say, that's what it looked like when I went here. So
agreed.
I think that this whole project is so beneficial to the community, and it is going to show people that we are going to get more teachers to want to work here. We have a teacher's contract coming up, and we'll get to that. But we are going to improve these facilities. We have air conditioning now. We have heating that works. We have these new technology abilities with all this stuff we have. We have these new auditoriums. We have all these new conference spaces with these lobbies that teachers can use for projects and they can use with their students. And we have all of these things now, these resources that teachers did not have before. So you're not only improving the facility for the students who are in these buildings every day, you're improving them for the teachers who are in these buildings sometimes longer than the students and more than
you're
the
improving
students.
it for everyone, the community members, the teachers, the staff, and your student body.
Yeah. And I think that's a huge thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the number one thing that's wrapped into this, and we have to talk about this because this is important, is the tax base. We have a community that is very small. We do not have a large tax base. So we have a lot of people complaining about this construction project and saying they think that this construction project is going to cost the taxpayers a lot of money. When we listen to our director of finance, we see that that's not the case. He showed a presentation prior to the primary election explaining that the reason that we had to raise our taxes this year, one was because we didn't raise them last year. So he explained last year that if we were not to raise the taxes that year, we would have to raise them the next year. All 9 board members knew that. So I think that's an important point to make too. Every board member knew that a tax raise was coming.
Agreed.
So, for some of these things or opinions to change because of an election year can be upsetting. You knew it was going to come. So when it came to the table, it was this raise, which really in the long run does not become as expensive as people think it is. They see the number, this 5.6% or whatever it was, and they think that's it only adds a couple extra dollars onto, which can be hard for some people. And we understand that. But I think it's important to know that there are some things that are playing into this that aren't the construction. Special education is something that is causing us a great amount of money.
1.3 million, Chad. It's gone up in the last year.
And that is insane.
Correct.
That is absolutely insane. Our cyber schools.
Cyber charter hurts every school.
It hurts
in
every school.
Pennsylvania. Every school.
And that cyber school is something that's even worse because this is at the fingertips of any student. I mean, a student could go cyber like that in one day. It takes no process, no approval.
Correct.
You just go into it. So now, as we have this cyber school growing, and we have students who are going into these schools or texting their friends from home and saying, "Hey, by the way, I joined cyber school. I do 2 assignments a day, and then I go back to bed, or I go out and do my own thing."
Right.
If I'm a student, I'd be like, "Oh, wow, that sounds appealing. Like, why don't I just join that?"
And the problem with cyber school, Chad, and some kids, it works for them, and it's good that they have options. But the problem is what our state has done is cyber schools for special ed and for regular students get the full price. Okay, $15,000 for special, for a regular student, $28,000 for special education. Even though those schools don't have the overhead that we have as a brick and mortar district, that's not fair.
Yes, they don't have the facilities. A lot of the time, they don't have the staff.
Correct.
They don't have the administrators. They have a couple people. And now with AI, that's going to start taking over a lot of their teacher positions too. You're not going to have a hands-on teacher.
You're not having the level
of
cost, yet they're getting the same reimbursement that we get.
Yeah, and there needs to be something addressed about that. School boards need to take that fight on. We need to talk to our state and local legislators, our senators, our representatives, everybody. We need to explain that there needs to be a cap. There should be no reason why they get a full...
And that has been proposed.
Yes.
But it is not getting moved.
Yeah. And that's disappointing. Yeah. And I think everybody can agree that this is something that's costing work. I think it's costing us upwards of $500,000.
About $570,000. And so our district is fortunate because we're on the low side.
Yeah.
But it still hurts.
Yes. That's still $500,000 that we have to dedicate to this that could be dedicated to something else. Probably something worth better while, like putting into our facilities or something like that. So that's crushing us. And then will really hit us this year with the governor's budget and with the state budget. And all of this, our state is in a position right now where everybody's fighting about this budget. We're not passing the right things. We did not get enough funding. Our funding this year was one of the lowest amounts we've received. And Al showed the charts.
That's correct.
On his predictions, and it was growing and growing. I think the year before, and I might be wrong, it was like an 8% increase in state funding. And then this year was predicted for like an 11%, I believe it was. And the number was nowhere near 11%. It was super low. So that is a huge part to keeping a public school open is the state funding.
That's correct. So what most people, I'm not sure how much they understand about our budget. Our budget is pretty much half made up with state funding and half made up with local property values, just so everybody knows.
Yeah. So when you're not getting the proper amount of state funding, unfortunately, the taxes have to raise.
Well, the taxes are always, and again, remember our budget, and you've had this conversation, the majority of our budget, 90% of our budget is salaries and benefits, 90%. So your employees get a 3.5% raise, benefits always go up. That number could go anywhere from 3 to 7. So your cost continue to rise based on salaries and benefits. That is by far the largest portion of our budget, 90% salaries and benefits. Pension. Pension is dictated by the state, not by us. Okay, there's so many guardrails that we don't control. So.
Yeah, and I think you made a statement at one of the board meetings about the next 30 years and how much this is going to cost our school district. And the personnel and the benefits, it was in the billions.
Personnel and benefits over the next 30 years is $2.2 billion. That's based on a 3% inflation, $2.2 billion, okay? And that's where I get real frustrated, because the folks that are playing political games with our community, they want to shine the light on the shiny ball, or the upgrades to our school for our kids, okay? The upgrades to our school for our kids are a drop in the bucket, okay? When you figure out the percent, I did this at 0.08% of what the salaries and benefits will be over the next 30 years. The upgrades to the high school will last 50 years. They'll outlast that 30, okay? The only way, and I learned this early on when I got on the board, the only way you control a district's costs are salaries and benefits. It's all personnel, okay? That is the absolute what costs the district and the community everything. And it's not the facilities. I know that that's what people out there want to say. That is not true. Debt service is always used in every district in the Commonwealth to upgrade their facilities. The most important thing about debt service is how you manage it. You make sure when you borrow money, you can refinance it just like you refinance your house. Okay, one of the things that happened to this district is there was a bond that was taken out in the 90s that was not refinanceable. They took it out at 7% interest. It was locked in. That bond cost the district and the community $22 million. We're still paying for that bond today. And that made it so difficult for the district to do anything from a facility standpoint because of that decision. All of the money that's being borrowed currently is all refinanceable. Okay. That is a big deal that people need to understand. That was not the case with that one bond that really made the situation for us difficult.
This is also a hard part of that is we're up in the billions now in 30 years with that cost of personnel and all of that. And then we have teacher positions are lowering. We don't have as many people wanting to be teachers as we need. So what I think we're going to start to face too is now we have to get into raising these salaries. So all of this cost is going to keep going up. This isn't a cost that just goes down. So we need an appealing starting salary, especially once we have this new facility. We need a salary that's going to be appealing to teachers. The teachers are going to want to come to Elizabeth Ford and stay at Elizabeth Ford, because that's a very important thing. And I was shocked when I went back to the high school. I had an event there that I went to. There were a couple classrooms that I walked into. I graduated in 2024 and I had no clue who the teachers were. And some of these were because of a teacher was just at the retirement age. They retired and they were done. Other ones were young teachers that I knew, and I was shocked to see that they weren't at Elizabeth Ford anymore. So I think that's going to be an issue we're going to start to have to address eventually too, especially with this teacher contract coming up. A lot of the time what we see in these contracts is the top salaries will get those increases. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, and it's hard for those teachers who are experienced and have been there for a while, sometimes they have to not raise as much as they want. And the lower has to. We need the starting salary to begin to raise more. And I think that's a hard thing that we're going to start to face more with our taxes, with our benefits, with everything that comes into play with that. It is going to be a pricey thing. And we do not live in a community where we have this broad tax base. We have to go to our properties. That's our only choice. Mm-hmm. We don't have the businesses. We don't have the entertainment taxes. We don't have any of these taxes that we can use to benefit our school. And at some point, the blame needs to not be on the school board. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the most important thing is the school board is receiving a lot of this backlash right now because you guys had to raise taxes. I don't see that as your fault. I don't see it as your fault at all. And I think people would be a fool to believe, and I think candidates would be fools to say that they're never going to raise taxes. you have to raise taxes.
If you're going to have a successful district and you're going to, and again, 90% of salaries, 90% of your budget is salaries and benefits, unless you're going to find a way to not give people raises and not pay for increases in health insurance, you're going to have a very difficult time running a budget that way.
Yeah.
And that has been done to us in the past. That is why we lived on a credit card for many years in the summertime and had to borrow money to make payroll.
Yeah.
That isn't, when people say that, unfortunately, you could do that for a time period. You could do that for 3, 4, or 5 years. The district's going to be in the same place, in a very bad place. Okay.
Yes.
This goes back to, Chad, there's several issues, and this is just not us at Elizabeth Forward. This is everywhere. There is a crisis in teachers. People do not want to become teachers now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That is not just in Elizabeth. That is everywhere. It's across the state. Okay. It's a big issue.
Yeah.
It's a big issue for our kids. It's a big issue for communities. So, and then post-COVID, everything costs more, inflation. Okay. It's a multifaceted problem. Okay. And again, this is another reason that you go back to, why is it time to right size? Okay. This is one more giant reason why you want to right size. You want to be as efficient as possible. Everybody says you need to run it like a business, right? However, educating kids is very different than a business. But this right-sizing the district is what's best from an educational standpoint, it's best from an efficiency standpoint, and it's best from a financial standpoint. Okay, but these issues are bigger than Elizabeth Forward. They're much bigger than Elizabeth Forward. The teacher shortage is really the biggest issue of why we're struggling to retain teachers more than ever. Okay, it's very difficult. It was very difficult before to find science teachers. It's way more difficult now, okay? And the specialty teachers, the Spanish teachers, the market has just become so thin. It's very much supply and demand. And again, that struggle was much bigger than it was before.
Yeah.
And it hurts our kids. It hurts our community. I am very concerned for public education because of the lack of people that want to pursue those careers.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a big issue. Especially, and like we go back to this our taxes, we don't have a lot of teachers who live in our district specifically. And I think that's a point that should also kind of be made at some extent too, where you have a community who is upset with these tax raises, understandably so, because it can be hard for our older population. And Elizabeth has a lot of older residents. So that makes sense. But it's hard because we know that we need to satisfy our teachers.
Mm-hmm.
We know we need to take care of them in our contracts. But when they don't live in the community, they don't understand sometimes the burden that can put on to certain residents.
Agreed.
And I don't say that as if they're selfish. I just say that as a broad point. Like, it is sometimes more encouraged to have teachers who live in the community, because then you can have teachers who are, yes, not exactly happy with this starting salary,
Mm-hmm.
but they can understand why this community has to be at this kind of standstill. Like I said, we don't have the tax base. We do not have the industry. We have a strip of 51 that we could build up to be beautiful.
That's correct.
And for some reason we don't.
Right.
And that is crushing our school. And that's crushing our school board, and it's causing the community to turn a blind eye on stuff that's really important and just attack the school board for no reason.
Correct.
And that's what I think the point of this podcast, the point of my articles, is to just inform the community as best as I can. Because I think that there is a lack of information. I don't know who's to blame for that, but I think that people need to be informed and they need to know what's going on.
So let's talk about the high school project, okay? Because, the high school project and what occurred and the fire and the misinformation that exists in this high school project that people are seizing on, which is very unfortunate. Again, I said we were building a fund balance because we knew this day was coming, right? We had to right the ship from a bond standpoint, which we did. Our bond rating now is a AA, okay? So over the last 10 years, that's what we've worked to do to right the ship so we can take care of business. What we're doing now, what we're doing with the high school, what follows with the middle school and central is doing business, okay, which hadn't been done, which is unfortunate. The plan to pay that, there's a multitude of ways. The insurance money, okay, which is still currently under negotiation, which I'm sure anyone that's been in an insurance claim can understand. complex this one is. Okay, so we have to continue to work through that. So we will continue to maximize that claim. Okay, that's number one. So far we've gotten $5 million in grant money. Okay, that's number two. And then yes, number three, there is the bond. There is the borrowing through the bonds. Okay, that's how the project is paid for and financed. However, to pay the debt service, just like you pay your mortgage, it has been calculated by Mr. Reagan, okay, our business manager, who's done a great job, that right-sizing the district will write that check, okay? It will not be a tax increase to the taxpayers. It's very important for people to understand that. Prior to when all this, there was so much thought and effort into figuring out that piece of the puzzle, okay? So the fire in it, it's a blessing for the community and the taxpayers that we can pull this off and upgrade this place and make it something that the kids are proud of without putting that burden on the taxpayer. Anyone who says that it's not true. Okay, that is not a factual, true statement. So you have to remember, every district in Pennsylvania uses debt service to upgrade their facilities. There is not a district out there that does not do it that way. This is normal business. For the last 30 years, unfortunately, we have not done that business. And now we have to. But again, we've come up with a solution to do this without putting the burden on the taxpayers, Chad.
Yeah. And it's
very important.
I think another thing with this project, and I want to address this because this was something that happened recently at the time of us recording this. And depending on when this comes out, that could change how recent it was. But we saw a big issue with our heat in the schools. We know that this was something that was planned to be turned on that date for months. I mean, this was something that was already planned.
Correct.
The community did not know that. So there was a lack of communication there that probably should have been there. But I want to link that back to, because this is something that I was upset with when I first saw the plans and I first heard about the way that this construction was going. So the original spot for the auditorium was where the new gymnasium is going to be.
That's correct.
The new place where the auditorium is a branch off of, correct me if I'm wrong, the tech education.
That's correct. Yeah.
So that is a whole new area that nothing was at. The auditorium is being constructed on. The gymnasium is being built where the auditorium was. When I first heard that, and I heard that the gymnasium was going to be finished first, I was extremely upset with that.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was outrageous. We had a gymnasium. We did not have an auditorium. I thought that was horrible. The more that I've thought about it now with these issues with heating, the more I've began to understand, and I just want to make this more of a point for the public who is also feeling that distaste for not finishing the auditorium first. Everything that we need for this school to run is underneath that gym, is underneath where the original auditorium was. That's your boilers, your electric. Every fundamental part to having a building be able to turn on is underneath that specific area. So would it be nice to get an auditorium up first? Yes. We need the gym built first now. And it took me, I don't know why it took me so long to realize that everything is underneath there.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes total sense. And I'm not really even asking you a question about that. I just more or less want to make that a statement.
Yeah,
for that.
But I can elaborate on that.
Yeah.
As far as the gymnasium the decision was made to place the gymnasium there with the other gymnasiums.
Yes.
Okay, so it made sense from that standpoint. Okay. The mechanic, yes, you're absolutely correct. The mechanical room, the old mechanical room was under the stage. Okay. Directly where the fire began. Okay. The stage and the mechanical room were in the way to build whatever was built, whether the auditorium was placed there or not placed there. The footprint of the new auditorium, based on ADA requirements and in the world we live today, would have not fit in the same footprint. Okay, the decision was made, and I'm not real sure where it comes along that people didn't think it was an emergency. We had a mechanical room. Whenever I say that, with an electric service. All of our boilers, all of our heat, that was literally covered by a temporary rubber roof. Okay. And we were sitting there looking at this green wall with all of our infrastructure at risk. Okay. So the decision was made. The most efficient way to do that was to create a temporary mechanical room. Okay. So for 1 year, we had to create a temporary mechanical room, bring in temporary boilers, bring in temporary hot water. We were able to maintain the electric service. Okay, during that time, Everything was demoed, construction commenced. Okay. So to your point, the reason why everything started there was because that's the heart of the building, right? And then from there, the mechanical room was rebuilt. We had to have the mechanical room up and running in a year. It was a very, very short time frame, okay? And what people don't understand is the entire heating system in the school was changed. What I mean by that, we were steam before. We're now all hot water. The steam was hard to control. The decision was made to go all with hot water. There was some discussion about going with steam and hot water. It would have complicated things. Okay, so the choice was made to upgrade the entire building to hot water, all the new spaces. So yes, that is the reason behind the sequence of things. And the auditorium just so happens, it's going to fall. The auditorium's also a little bit more complicated. There's a little bit more in there than the gymnasium, so it takes longer for the finishes. So to elaborate on your point, that's the reason that it's sequenced the way that it is.
Yeah, and I also think, too, with the locations of everything, as you said, it wouldn't make sense for a gym to be anywhere else. You have a gymnasium that is sitting now right across.
And think about this now, Chad. We have two different beautiful lobbies. And we can host two events at once. Before, you were sharing the same lobby.
Yes.
That was a lot of the thinking also.
Yeah.
Okay? So you literally can have your play, and there can still be something going on. There'll be more parking up there than there was. We can host multiple things at the same time.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. And I'm glad you brought that up. There's a concert I go to every year. It's a Christmas concert, a B. Taylor band. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
Mm-hmm.
They used to perform in Pittsburgh. Now they perform at, I believe it's Moon Area High School. If you've ever been to Moon High School, it's a really nice facility. They have a great auditorium, a very nice gym. Their auditorium and their gym are right next to each other. Every single year that we go there, there is a basketball game or something happening in that gym. So not only are you walking through a lobby where there are students, so there are players and students walking through with a bunch of strangers who are coming from everywhere. It's not normal for somebody from Elizabeth to be at Moon. So you have students who are mixing with the public now, and you have a parking situation which is a mess because they are right next to each other. And you have a lobby now that is filled with maybe 2,000 people who should not be clashing.
Mm.
So that's a really good point that you made, and I'm glad you did. This gives us an opportunity to have separate wings. If we look at Thomas Jefferson, one side of their building is a theater wing, the other side is a gym wing. When we would have our practices there after the school burnt down, we never mixed with their sports practices. Right. We never mixed with anything.
That was the
one wing
with what we were doing.
Yes, and I think that's a great idea. And as you're saying with these lobbies too, these lobbies now, we have been given the ability to get a little more creative with them. So these are going to be a larger style of a lobby that you now have in front of the gym that is with one gym on one side and one gym on the other side. If you wanted to, you could host an event in that lobby that could seat 100 people, maybe a little more than that. And then you can also take it into the gyms. So you have a continuous spot from one side of the gym all the way to the other side that just allows you to have so many opportunities. You can host conferences. You can host meetings in there. You could do whatever you want now in this.
Don't forget now, we actually can have graduation in our gymnasium if we have to. Our gymnasium was not big enough for graduation. We were always terrified it was going to rain because then people wouldn't be able to have the number of people they wanted to come to graduation.
Yeah, okay. We have that ability.
Now we actually have that ability.
And not only that, this happens at some schools too. You have the ability not to have everybody in the same room for a graduation too if you need. If you have a class that exceeds this limit of people, you can have A through however many in one and Z through however many in the other.
But if you think of it now, Chad, I mean, if we have 200 or graduating class of 176 kids, we can seat 1,200 people. That's over 6 people per student.
Yeah. So we should never fall into that situation.
Correct.
If needed. But it is so nice now, like we have these spaces where we can actually do stuff with.
Right. And they're all air conditioned.
Yeah. And that's a huge air condition. We have new lighting in them. And I'm sure we're going to have a lot of technology in them that is going to make them into these things.
Let's talk about that. Let's take the opportunity to talk about what all has been done up there, because I think everybody sees it. Me and you have discussed this.
Yeah.
It's just an auditorium, gymnasium. Okay. It's so much more.
Yeah.
The entire building gets a new roof. Okay. sprinklers throughout the building, new heating and cooling throughout the building, new unit ventilators, new rooftop units, new sprinklers throughout, new water service, new gas line, new all of the utilities coming from the road all the way up are all new. The new electric service, okay, new 480 volt electric service, which to service all the air conditioner, okay. There is a new water service loop all the way around, which is your fire hydrants and your sprinklers. There is just so many upgrades, LED lights throughout the building. There are so many upgrades that are not the gymnasium and the auditorium, okay? Code upgrades. Last time the building was remodeled, there was not a national building code. Now the building has to be brought up to national building code. So there's just so many things that people don't see that are underground.
Yeah.
That were past their useful life. It's really important. The HVAC alone, heating and air conditioning, the contract for that by itself is $15 million.
Wow. Yeah, and that's a really good point too. I think a lot of people do look at it as, okay, we have an auditorium, we have a gym. That's it.
Sprinklers, $1.5 million sprinkle the building.
Yeah.
Okay. You're going to tell me after we had a fire that the building shouldn't be sprinkled?
Yeah. We need all of this.
New fire alarm throughout the building. Okay. Like, there's just so many things that had to be done.
Yeah. Well, not only that, when you walk through the building now, and I saw this when I was there for events, you have doorways now that weren't there. You have doors in the hallways now that
there's fire separation. There's fire separations. And again, that's another national building code requirement. They've all been built in 2-hour fire separation between segment building.
Yeah. And I think you could look at that from the fire standpoint too, and almost from a security standpoint as well. You now have these doors that you can use to block off. We have the gates, of course, but you have these doors now that you can shut and prevent something from getting to another section of the building. So if something were to happen, you can shut these doors for something, There are so many features now in this school that we did not have because we were grandfathered into all of this stuff that we needed. And the air conditioning, I think, is the number one thing that people need to look at and be so grateful for. Because I can tell you, I remember sitting in class and having teachers have to give you water bottles. There would be clubs that would service, that was their goal for the year. We collected donations of money so that we could buy water bottles for when it was hot. So I think that is a huge thing. I know a teacher who had left Elizabeth Forward prior to all of this to go to another school. And the one thing that was said to me whenever I said, what's it like at your new school? It's so nice to have air conditioning. That was the first thing that was said. Not it's a different, not different.
And think about all your gymnasiums now have air conditioning.
Yeah.
You can host events in the summertime. Your auditorium, same thing, can host events in the summertime. I think it just becomes more useful for the community.
Yes.
Year round.
Yeah, 100%. And that's something we performed at the middle school last year. One thing that we noticed was that middle school gets very hot. And we were very fortunate that we did it very early in April where the weather was still kind of turning. So it wasn't obnoxiously hot. But there was one day where it was so hot that our haze machines that was creating the smoke in the room, actually, it was so hot that the smoke was so thick from the humidity and mixing and everything, you couldn't see the stage in front of you. So we had to air the place out and fix that. So now we have this circulating air. It is going to just improve the quality of every experience that you're going to be in there. And there really is, when you look at this project as a graduate of the school, as a parent, as a former student, as somebody who loves this community, there is nothing you should be complaining about with this project.
Our students in our community deserve it.
Yes.
They deserve it.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. And as we've touched on a little bit, with the taxes, with the bonds, the debt is something that's talked about a lot. This is a big project. You just said how much a lot of this stuff costs. So we have the insurance money playing in, of course. We have grants that we were able to get. You said $5 million in grants. We have this stuff, and we still have plenty of grant opportunities. I think that we
need to go after. Agreed. We continue to go after. But the important thing that people need to understand with the grants, you have to be shovel ready. The project has to be shovel ready. So therefore, if you see and you ask yourself, why are we paying to design a project? If we don't have it designed and ready to go, you can't get the grant money.
Yeah.
In the past, we never went after that grant money. That has to change, and that has changed. Yeah. So you have to spend the money to be shovel ready to go with these projects.
Yeah.
When I say shovel ready, that's not just, digging dirt. That's being ready to put air conditioning in. You have to have the engineering and everything figured out, and then go get the grant money.
Yeah. And I think that's something that hurt us a lot with the age of our building, with the existing features. Another thing that's brought up a lot is change orders. We have a low amount of change orders. I know that you have made that point to people before. We are at a low level of change orders. But what people don't understand with some of these change orders is it's not just that they messed something up or this company messed something up. It's that they did not know what to expect when coming into a building of this age. And I'm sure they had ideas because they do that. That's their job. But when you fix one thing and realize that another thing's broken, that's just how it works. Well, going to be these orders.
Chad, it's very complicated, and I've learned a tremendous amount. If you look at any of these projects, they all have a contingency fund. If we have a contingency fund, it's $3 million. That is built for your change orders. What you have to do is manage those change orders and be disciplined about them. We have done a great job. Dave Nisiosi, every single change order that comes across the table is looked at, is scrutinized by Dave McLean, by myself. Any person that can add value to those numbers looks at that before it's given an okay. And there's a term in the construction industry that's called unforeseen conditions, okay? I did not know what that was until you get into a project of this size, okay? The other thing that people need to understand about change orders is that when you have a project of this size, it's not like building your own house, okay? If you're building your own house and you are unhappy with something that occurred, you can pump the brakes, okay? If you pump the brakes in a project like this, the district, therefore, if the district makes that decision, then what happens is you can get hit with delay claims, okay? Delay claims, the contractors can literally charge you for delaying them in their work, okay? So it's not a simple process like building a house. Yeah, it's very, very different. It's very complicated. However, we have done an amazing job. I go and I look at the brand new buildings, the Bethel Park building, brand new building that Steel Valley's doing. Our numbers and our change orders are better than that, okay? And the whole change order thing, people want to use that as a political ploy to come after people. That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
It's the nature of the beast. You have to manage them. We've done a tremendous job doing that. It's not fair for people to use that. Again, go look at every school project out there. They all have them. If they don't have them, that is because the architect gave what they call gigantic allowances, and that's just a different way to cover the changes. Okay, so you will not find a project of this size, public education, that they don't occur.
Yeah, and I think what you said about the stopping of something because of change order, they can charge you massive money.
Absolutely,
that's a huge deal.
Yes,
I mean that is a massive deal. Not only is that a massive deal, but you're wrecking a relationship with somebody who is in control of a project.
That's correct.
It would be very easy for them to really mess things up.
Things go sideways.
Yes.
You have to have a working relationship with the guys that are doing this job.
Yeah. And I can understand why some people, when we look at social media, or really, and I don't want to get into this campaign period that much, but if you look at the campaign period, you have some people who are either saying to candidates, or you have candidates saying that they want to stop things or would encourage a candidate to stop things. That is going to cost this school. I can't even imagine the number that it would cost. And not only
it would be the worst thing for the district.
Yes,
community
and
our students.
It would kill our students.
It would.
And I mean that in a serious way, because I can tell you, as a student who went to this school, I attended 9th grade during COVID. I missed my whole freshman year. I attended 10th grade. I had an off year with 10th grade. We came back at the beginning. It was still iffy if we were going to be there. We still had masks. It was not a normal year by any means. So 11th grade was a normal year. In February came around, the fire happened. I was in virtual school. The district did a great job. Was I excited to go back to school? I don't know, because I kind of enjoyed being home, but I think most students did. But once I got back in that building, I realized I was doing so much better. 9th grade me,
I could not handle virtual school. And weren't you happy to get back after?
Extremely
happy. Right?
And I think that, were there probably flaws? Probably. I mean, the smell. Nobody's going to deny that there was a smell. There were no ceiling tiles. But we were back in that building. We were learning. The air quality was fine. There were tests on that every day. Everything in that building was okay for us to be there. And when we first went back, I was upset about it. But as I was saying, going back to this virtual style of school, it does not work for students. I did not do good in my 9th grade year because of this virtual style. I did not, I did better in my 11th grade year because I knew what I had to do. But I still was like, it's very easy to fall off into a habit of, whatever, I'll do it later.
Agreed.
So being in that building is the most important thing. My 12th grade year, I went to high school for 4 years. I had 1 full year of high school. I don't want that for any student.
Chad, I agree. That's what happened to my own kids. I saw it in my own kids. It's and it isn't good what happened to our kids. And that's why when the fire happened, it was just so disappointing.
Yeah.
Because our kids had already been through COVID.
Yes.
And that's why, it bothered me every night and to get those kids, our kids, including yourself, back there.
Yeah.
And that's what we needed enough.
We needed a form of leadership, and I give the board credit. I give you credit. I give our superintendent credit.
Well, don't forget Dave Maciosi.
Yes. Yeah.
Dave unfortunately doesn't get enough credit for what Dave did. Dave has a son that goes to the He was very disappointed. He was involved very early on with the fire because he's a wealth of knowledge for construction.
Yeah.
And Dave was willing to take on the project. Dave literally lived in the parking lot until the kids went back to school.
Yeah.
He was in his truck. He lived there until the kids went back to school.
Yeah.
He dedicated his life, didn't make a penny. They didn't make a penny for 2 years.
Yeah.
But the man put his time and his life on the line, on hold, to get our kids back to school.
And that's a huge,
the man doesn't get credit for that. He doesn't want credit for that, but he deserves it.
Yeah.
And there's too many people and there's just too many rumors about things that just aren't true.
Yeah.
And Dave is a tremendous asset.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's another thing I think people need to also take into consideration. He is a member of our community that is looking to help our scholars. And the way that he gets attacked for that is very upsetting. That is a man who literally is dedicating his life to this. We see him at every board meeting. He comes to the board meetings. He stops them from saying anything they want. If you give him false information, he will tell you, I'm sorry, that's false. And he comes to these meetings and he stands up and he says, this is a change order. This is why we need it. This is what we did. This is how we're doing it. It's as simple as that.
All I can say is Dave fights for the kids in the community every
Yeah.
day of his life. And, people can be upset that Dave's getting paid to do it. Dave is getting paid to do is half of what it would have costed us. Okay?
Yeah.
But the man spends 80 to 100 hours a week, and he's devoted to our kids. He's devoted to the community. He's devoted to stretching every single dollar so we can do as much as possible for the same amount of money.
Yes, and that's what we need. And that is why we were in that school again after that fire.
Correct.
And that's important. And honestly, every person involved in that should be credited and should be thanked. That is not something political.
No.
That is, you got students in a building where they need to be. Students need to be in a building. I am against cyber school. I think that it does not work. I am against virtual learning. I think that it does not work. I've lived it. I think some people probably can do very good in it. I know I can't. So it's difficult for those students who can't.
And listen, Chad, that was one of the hardest things. I've been on the board 10 years. And, Mr. Fonick, who's done a tremendous job, he was only superintendent for a couple weeks when the fire happened. So that was a very difficult time for the community and our students.
Yeah. I want to touch on him too, because he quite literally walked into this position right when this started.
Absolutely.
I mean, there could not have been a more stressful time for him to take on a position like this. A superintendent is already a pretty hard job. I mean, you are the CEO of this school.
Absolutely.
And that is how it should be looked at. He walked into this and immediately was crushed over it. I mean, this is something that I wouldn't wish that on anybody, to have to do that for the first,
the superintendent's job is difficult enough. You figured,
Yes.
like you said, Chad, you got You got a very large budget. You have 500 employees. You have 2,500 students. You have all the parents that go with that. You have 6 different facilities. That job's hard enough.
Yes.
And then this man walked into this job in a fire.
And that's a lot of stress. And that's not just stress on him. That's stress on, of course, the teachers. That's stress on our principals.
Everyone.
It's stress on everybody. And I give him credit, and I give all the admin that I experienced during my time there credit, because they wanted to do what was best for the students. They wanted to talk to us. I can't tell you a time that I walked down the hallway when Dr. Karushkin was there, when Mr. Konyak was there, when Mr. Ralph was there, when Miss Garlow was there, any admin, there was never a time you'd walk down that hallway and they wouldn't say hi to you. They want students to feel comfortable in these buildings, and that is a very important connection for them to make, especially in a time that we were in. We got back from this fire. Did they probably want to freak out on students? Probably, because students were just doing whatever. We felt like, we're not going to be here for much longer. They're going to send us back home. They probably wanted to do that, but what they did was such a good approach, where it was, listen, we need you to be here. This is what is best for you. And it upset me because I heard a lot of people saying that students did not have input in this construction process. Yes, we did not have a sit down with the board because that's not a student position, but I can guarantee you that I remember as a student sitting through a forum with the superintendent. Mr. Konyak had a meeting with a variety of students of all grades. And I remember that very, very a lot, where he had a group of students come to the media center at the high school, and he sat them down and he said to them, this is the project we're looking at. Tell us your opinions. What do you students need? And students told him what they needed. And I'm sure there's posts showing that this happened. I remember that happening. So when I hear that students had no say in this, that's not true. We did have a say in this. There have been forms sent out to the community. You can be a student, you could be an adult, you could be whoever, and fill that form out. What do you think that this should be? What do you think we should do? Anybody can answer this stuff. I was a student who answered those. So we did have a vast variety of our community discuss things. And
students and staff had a tremendous amount of input on what's going on in the building. And don't forget, we were in a situation where it was fire. We didn't have the luxury of all the time in the world. And Mr. Konyak still made that happen.
Yes.
And you as being in the theater arts, you know that a tremendous amount of what's going on up there and the decisions that are made came directly from the theater arts department.
Yeah. I mean, and that's something you keep hearing this, I want to say agenda, because that's what it is. There is an agenda out there to, I don't want to say tear down reputations, but to attack individuals. It is unnecessary.
Based on unfound truth.
Yes.
The things that just aren't true.
And I'm saying this from an informative perspective, not from an attack perspective. There are people who are saying things that are not true, and we need our community to understand that they are not true.
Fundamentally wrong.
Yes. And so we are hearing that this project was just this plan that came overnight. Nobody got any say in it, and it was written, and it was signed off on, and it was done. That's not true. I, as you were saying, work with the musical program. I can remember many times last year, the directors coming and saying, hey, do you have any idea for this? What do you think we should do here? Our lighting guy and our sound guy, Dave, he had super big talks with the school board in the district and the people that needed to understand what the end users. Yes. So the greatest example, the first design for how our garage would be for the stage was not what it needed to be. It was a very difficult design where you would walk through, you'd have to pivot. That can't happen. Right? With the set pieces, Elizabeth Ford puts on big shows. We have set pieces the size of this room. You can't pivot a set piece through a garage and then through a small doorway and then another doorway and then onto a stage. Right. They made that point to them. It was fixed like that. And you go and look now, you can see from the road, there is a garage that goes straight into the building and then straight into another garage.
Service the stage.
And that's what we need.
Right.
We have the facilities now because we had the directors speak. We had these people speak to people who are doing this project and say, this is what we need. So it was not just a sign-off check. And maybe not everything was accepted because there are some things that need cut off. And I give
It's a process.
Yeah.
It's a process.
There are people who are very passionate about these things. They want us to have the best gym or the best auditorium, but you can't have it all sometimes.
Right.
But I think
We're not going for extravagant. We're
Yes.
going for nice.
And I think we're doing a very good job at getting to extravagant through getting to nice. Because I can tell you, just by looking at the outside of this building, when you see this brick and you see these new windows, and the one thing that has been blowing me away is this entrance of this building. It is beautiful. And if the outside is looking like that, I can't wait to see what the inside's going to look like. Especially, I mean, I'm a musical guy. I'm very excited for this auditorium. I think that it is going to be beautiful. When you compare it to our original high school auditorium, I think people are going to really be in shock. And I hope that we have photos of the auditorium before the fire that are good enough to show people the vast difference in how big this is going to be. And I have had my doubts about this auditorium, but the more I looked into it, and I do compare, I was worried about the stage size. I looked into it. Our stage size is actually bigger now. We are having a bigger facility now. So this is such a good project. This is great. And I know I didn't want to keep going back to the construction, but it is so important for people to hear.
Well, it's
that
exciting.
this is a positive thing.
It's exciting. Just like you said, they did a news story on the beginning and they interviewed a student. I don't recall his name, but like he said it the best, how excited he was. And I love when the kids say it the best half the time. The adults, we get it wrong, and the kids say it the best. And you remember what he said. He was so happy. I'm not going to benefit, but I'm so excited for the next generation kid.
Yes.
They're going to get the benefit. That's what it's all about.
Yes. And I think that his words, in all honesty, show the heavy majority of our.
Agreed.
I think that there is a small majority who thinks it's not like that, but it is. As they said on the news, as he said, Elizabeth Forward is ready to move forward.
Yep.
I am excited for this project. I graduated from there. You graduated from there. I do not know a single person I graduated with who has said, this is stupid. I don't. Because it's not. We know that this is what our students need. Our students
deserve. Our community deserves.
I think that's better than saying it's needed. It is deserved.
Absolutely.
That is the
truth. Not only that, Chad, we as a district and a community have figured out a way to pay for this without putting the burden on the taxpayer. Not only does our community deserve it, it's 20 years overdue.
Yes.
Because we didn't take care of business.
Yes.
This is very much, I tell you all the time, this is very much business.
Yes.
And this business should have been taken care of.
Yeah.
Okay. This is what all districts do. They maintain their facility. Again, it's part of your business.
Yeah. Now, real quick, because I know we touched on this a little bit. Can you break down these bonds that we have pulled out so far? So the most recent was 56 million.
54. Sure. So we borrowed, again, remember what I said. You have the insurance claim proceeds. You have the grant funding. Okay, we borrowed 10 million. We borrowed 10 million because it was the smaller chunks or you get more action on them so you can get a better rate. Then we borrowed another 10 million. And then we just recently borrowed the larger portion, 54 million, which helps get us through phase 2. Okay. And again, all of that financing, it was all planned. It's all calculated. Every one of those bonds can be refinanced, and they will end up being refinanced. Okay. That is a big piece of the puzzle. When people want to sit there and talk about, well, you're taking on all this debt. We're taking on all this debt in a moment in time. And as you work through those bonds and you refinance those bonds, they come your way. Since I've been on the board the last 10 years, we've refinanced everything except that one bond that I told you about. So that's the portion of the debt service that we've taken on. But again, we have a plan to write that check to pay for that debt service.
Yeah,
which is very important.
And that bond you're talking about was brought up at a meeting recently. What was the number? $22 million it cost us?
So the bond that was non-financeable, non-callable was, we borrowed $5 million, and at the end of the payout, $22 million is what that will cost. Okay.
And that is insane.
And again, that one's non-financeable.
Yeah.
The current bonds that we have, they're about double what we're taking out. So 4 times less. Okay. However, they're all refinanceable. So that number will come down over time.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the important part to that. And that is what I'm glad we talk about that.
Let's talk about this too.
Yeah.
And anyone who's out there saying we're on unstable financial ground, that is completely, totally a lie to the community. Okay, it's a scare tactic, and it's very unfortunate. Literally, we have a AA bond rating. Okay, we have a AA bond rating.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the facts. That's our S&P rating.
Yeah.
Okay, we have the best bond rating that we've had in the last 25 years. Wow. Those are the facts, and that's where you and I agree. The facts need to be said.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think, and as a lot of people who are watching this or listening to this know, I ran for board, and that was the number one thing when I ran that I had the most amount of support on was basic transparency. Just saying, this is the information, this is what's happening. And I hope that this process and everything that we are seeing has encouraged the board and has encouraged our school specifically, because we have a school district account, to begin to share that information more. And this, I think, is a great that
Absolutely.
we have been able to sit down
Very cool.
and lay this out. And I think a podcast is such a great way because it is casual, it's comfortable, it gives something for people to put in. I'll write this into an article. This gives people a way to just know the facts. And that is the most important thing for anybody in this community, just to know the simple facts.
Well, Chad, what it does is it gives a great resource, because you've had a lot of people tell you that, Tom doesn't say much, he's quiet. And, my time and my energy is focused on my children, the district, my job, okay, just like everybody else. And the current state of the district and what's going on is so time consuming. It is another full-time job for me. It is not because I don't want to provide information to people. It's simply because at times you can imagine your normal life at another full-time job. It's overwhelming.
Yes.
So I do my best to keep my head above water.
Yes.
But my goal every day is to move the district forward for the kids in the community. And it's very time consuming.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people forget this part too. And this was a very big point that I was glad they made it to meet the candidates tonight. This is an unpaid position.
Unpaid.
There is no benefit to this except for the benefit that you get to help your community.
Correct.
This is not like a state representative position or a state senator position or any position like that where you are getting an income that some people can live off of.
Correct.
So you are doing this, you're volunteering your time. And I know that you volunteer a lot of your time. You go in there and you do your job.
I work to do what's best to move us to a better place.
Yes. And I know you're very quiet about that, but I like that about you. I respect that about you. You do a lot of stuff behind the scenes that people do not see. And I know you don't, you're just like how we said Babe does not like credit. You're the same way. We don't like the credit for it, but it does need to be credited for, because if I would have made it onto the board, that was exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to be involved in every step of the way. I wanted to be at every game I could be at. I wanted to be at every musical I could be at, every band competition I could be at. I wanted to be at every single thing I could possibly be at to show that I cared about the community. And that's something that honestly we lack. We need these people that are encouraged, ready for this school to be done. And we have the teacher. I mean, the teachers are ready. I know they are. I've talked to these teachers who, some of them have different opinions on this school. They're worried about it. But I've talked to a lot of teachers who said, it's been time for this. We need this. We are excited for this. I'm sure it's a headache right now. It is a construction zone. It's a work zone. It is probably
temporary inconvenience.
Yes.
For a permanent improvement.
Yes. But once this is all said and done, I think they're going to love it. And I can't speak for them. I'm not a teacher. I could never be a teacher. I give them a ton of credit. They put in a ton of work, and they put up with some things that they shouldn't have to put up with. But I think that this is going to benefit them so much in the long run. And I just think this is going to be great all around. And we need that, because that gets teachers
so
exciting.
It's an exciting day.
Yes.
And that's where you and I, we agree that this community and the parents, they should be so excited for their kids.
Yes. And everything about it, the new windows in this building. And this is what I want to touch on, because this is a big thing right now. Mental health in our students.
Mm-hmm.
We have talked about this article of the top 5 things that are affecting our students today.
Okay. So let's talk about that, Chad. So the focus right now, unfortunately, from this full political thing is in the wrong place. Okay.
Yes.
Our focus needs to, I keep saying the same thing. What we're doing up at high school is business.
Mm-hmm.
It's business that needs to be done. It's part of doing business in public education. brick and mortar schools. Okay, it's business. We need to return our focus to where it needs to be on our kids.
Yeah, I agree.
Mental health, all of the issues that our children suffer from technology, all of the bad that you and I talk about from technology. How do we prepare our kids? How do we protect our children from the future? Okay.
Yes.
That's the whole reason why I got on the board. I see it with myself. You understand it.
Yeah.
I believe life was simpler when I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
So what are we doing to better prepare our children for the future? What are their careers going to look like?
Mm-hmm.
AI is going to change so many things in 5 years.
Yeah.
I believe our focus as a community and as a district needs to return to where it belongs, and that's on our children and how we prepare them. Not on how much was the change order because we had to do something different with the break. Okay, our focus needs to be our kids, giving our kids the protecting our children, giving them the best ability to succeed in their future.
Yes.
You go ahead and speak your piece.
I agree 100% with that. And I know I have told you this so much because this is what I believe. And I think I'm going to write an opinion piece on this. We right now are in a time where we are focusing on all of the wrong things, in my opinion. And I told this to a lot of people after this Meet Candidates night. Our students are not talked about. Our teachers are not talked about. Very little if they are. We need to refocus. I understand that this construction is a big deal. I understand phase 1 is a big deal. I understand that phase 2 is a big deal. It is not as big of a deal as it is for our students.
Exactly.
We need to get back to the original intent, which is for our students.
Right.
Phase 1 it is near completion now. The bond is, or the bids are coming out for phase 2. That is going to be voted on in November. After the election. So if that is passed, phase 2 goes. Phase 2 starts, that is something that in my opinion should not be even a topic of discussion for this campaign. And it was hard when I ran because it was still very early, so we didn't know what was going to happen. But I tried to keep veering away from it. I would get questions about consolidation, and I would make it clear to them, my voice is not going to change that. I wouldn't get on until after that was voted on. Or I'd get questions about taxes. The school board voted to raise taxes before the municipal primary.
That's correct.
So I could not have changed that. So we are now focusing on this construction project that if a candidate is to say that they are going to stop it, they are lying. And I truly believe that is misinformation and that is a lie. You cannot stop it as a candidate. Now, if they had board members that were listening to them and were understanding that, maybe. But every candidate and every board member are on board with this.
Because they know it's the only option that we have.
Yes.
We can't maintain 6 facilities and have 141 kids in kindergarten.
Yes.
It's impossible.
Yeah. So now it is time for us to say, okay, it may suck for some people that want to have this as the main line, but it's not. We need to talk about our students.
The focus needs to be our students and our kids.
Mental health. This is a huge part. And I want to say this because this is important. We can link this construction directly to mental health. If we would have had to go virtual due to this construction, that would have caused an issue in mental health. It's not healthy to be at home all day, every day. It is healthy to be in a classroom with students. It is healthy to get involved in clubs. If I would have never joined musical, I would not have been an A+ student.
I would say it's even more important today, Chad, with all of the technology and how it takes kids away from what they need.
Yes.
Right?
Doing musical gave me a place, not only musical, joining student government, joining Leo Club, joining all of these clubs that we have at this school. We have amazing clubs. I mean, we have the Tribe. The Tribe Club is the club that works with our life skills students, takes them out to dinner, takes them to go bowling. That is a huge thing, not only for a student like me who feels so rewarded by helping these kids, for them who now, it stinks. They are in separate classes because they have to be, because they need that extra help. But now they get to come into this club with all of us students who they have grown up with. In elementary school, we are in classes together. In middle school, we have some classes together. Now we get back to high school and we are separate. And we have this club where students get to interact with our life skills students and let them be involved with us. That's great. I loved it. That was the greatest thing I had ever done, was join our partners' classes and join those clubs. Joining these clubs gets these students off their phones. It gets them to do community service.
If it's the food drives, if it is packing clothes, if it's our winter drives, stuff like that gets students offline and it gets them in a building. It gets them to interact. It gets them in the community. We would go to churches and we would help hand out food for food drives. That's a huge thing. It is so rewarding to you as a student to feel like you are making an impact in somebody's life. Joining a club, joining like musical, joining band, joining the football team, joining basketball, track, cross country, any of that. It gets you off of your phone for 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours.
And it engages you with your
Yes.
with other students. It's not about the activity; it's about relationships.
It is about the relationships. It's about, I would have just never thought that I would have gotten along with a kid in musical. If you would have told me that I was going to join musical before I did, I would have
There you go.
right? They are some of the greatest friends that I ever have made now. So it is so important because without these things, we would have such a mental health crisis because we would not have students engaging in this communication. We need that. We cannot text each other. We have to have this sit down.
And that's why Chad's a fire. I don't want to get you off track. The
Yeah.
fire was we as a community, as a district, let our community down because that fire, the fire may have still occurred, but it should have been out with sprinklers. It should have been alarmed.
Yeah.
And it should have been out in a very small period of time. We would have had a small period of time that our kids weren't in school.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But because we didn't take care of business, and again, it's business. We didn't take care of business.
Yeah.
All right. Our kids weren't in school for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Why? We had the original electric service in the building, and things weren't where they needed to be to protect the most important thing, educating our kids.
Yeah. And what I'm trying to get at basically is being in these buildings and doing these things is such an improvement on individuals. My best friend, I won't mention his name, my best friend was the quietest person you would ever meet. When he joined musical, that was his thing. We were like, does he talk? Like, what, what's going on? We joined it together. By our senior year, I cried over him because it was just amazing to see the way that he improved.
He
over
grew.
years. And the craziest part of the whole story was this musical, and I'm sorry I keep bringing that up, but that's my thing. We have an opportunity with the musical where like how the football gets to go to states and play on Hershey Field and the Whoop Eagles at Heinz Field or Acrisure Stadium. We have this opportunity to perform on the Benetton stage. I have performed twice on a sold-out stage at the Benetton. That's an experience not a lot of people get to say they performed in front of a sold-out audience at the Benetton. And my best friend, who was the quiet kid that did not talk, that had the same issues, was going through the same things that I was going because we weren't in school. We were uncomfortable with ourselves. We didn't know how to talk to him. We didn't know how to communicate. We had these issues because of not being in school. He performed a duo kind of in a way. He performed in the closing number of the Gene Kelly Awards, which was like the greatest thing in the world because it was so amazing to see how getting involved and pushing yourself to be motivated changes your life. Changes. So now we have students in these buildings. Again, these buildings are updated now. I walked into a classroom. The first thing I noticed was we have these windows now that stretch way higher than the other ones. The other ones were this big. These ones are this big. I walked in that building and was hit with natural light. I don't think people understand how big of a difference that makes.
So, that's in right now that's in the art wing and
yes, the art wing. Yes.
and the offices.
Yeah.
And that in phase 2, that will transition to the rest of the building.
Yes, and that is a huge difference.
Absolutely.
Because it really steps it up and it shows the amount of happiness that you can feel just from natural light. It is so nice to walk outside sometimes and just have that light. It is so nice to be in a building that has that light. And that is scientifically proven that people work better when they are not in a cubicle. And that is what some of our classrooms felt like. So now we have this. We're seeing these improvements, these air conditioning. All of this is going to help our students mentally. Mental health is an issue.
Well, I mean, Chad, we know, that the information and the data is out there now, what phones do to our children, and how do we sit there and not do anything about it when that information, it exists, the studies exist, and I believe, like you said, we need to get back to what's important. How do we protect our kids? How do we best educate our children? How do we prepare them for life?
Yeah.
And that's the stuff we need to focus on. Prepare the students for the future, prepare them for college. We have our duties that we have to do in high school, but what's at the next step? So I think we're doing a great job overall with that.
Yeah, we can always get better.
Yeah.
You always get more efficient, and you always progress.
Yes, after. And the most important thing, and this is for the community to understand, is to attend these board meetings. If you feel something's wrong, go to the board meeting. And what you were talking about earlier, you don't always respond to something, you don't always say something. You are very good when it comes to the business and not politics. And I want to word this the right way so people understand what I'm saying, is a school board is the least political position probably ever to be created.
Especially in the state of PA.
Yes, it should never be political. And PA, when it comes to a presidential election or to a national election, is a purple state. We have Democrats, we have Republicans. We are a very moderate state. Our governor might not always show that, but when you look at our Senate, that shows it. Or our Congress,
When you look at
shows
us, there's a whole.
yeah. So I think a lot of people get mixed up in the national government and think that matters when it comes to the school board. That doesn't. Our school board is created with Democrats and is created with Republicans. You have the option when you run for school board to run as both. You should, in my opinion, you shouldn't have to register as anything to run, but just be able to run.
Right. It doesn't matter what you are.
No. So I want people to understand that when you go to these meetings, these are not supposed to be gotcha meetings. You're not supposed to go and make a statement as a gotcha. We need productive meetings.
Bring solution.
Yes.
Bring solution.
If you have a concern, bring a way that we could fix it. That's what I tried to do, and that has got me more involved. I've talked to more board members now than I have ever before.
Like, you didn't know anything about me.
I knew nothing about you. I knew nothing about a majority of the board members. And I always tell everybody Scott was the only one I ever knew because of musical.
Right. You had an opportunity to interact.
Yes. So he helped me because I was able to voice my concerns to him. And that gave me that feeling of, okay, this is a board member who's willing to listen.
Coming to the board and playing that game of, that gotcha, I to this day can't understand it. It's all about solutions.
Yeah.
Solutions. If you have a better way, please, let's hear it. We as a community have to work together. Again, it goes back to the kids and what are we doing to make the community a better place within the guardrails that we have in play? Right, Chad?
Yeah.
Better for our students, better for our overall community well-being. How do we do that? How do we get there?
Yes. And I think what we need to get back to is we should stop looking at the school board as a board of directors. Now, I think that sounds weird. We should look at it more of a community project where you're coming to this board for a productive conversation on how we can better our community. How can we better our schools? It should not be me coming to the meeting and saying, this is wrong and it's wrong because you're the one right. Agreed. It should be me coming to the meeting and saying, listen, I don't agree with you. This is what I think would be
This is my idea.
Yes.
What do you think?
And though I may not be an elected board member, I'm a member of this community, and I feel that I can bring something to help you guys. Please let me help. I'm sure out of all 9 board members, every single one of you would not be opposed to that. No. And I think that's what we need. And
Positivity, productivity, solution.
Yes. And I think another thing is people, and this is this weird thing with all elected positions. People think that anybody elected to a position, you can't want it. It's like that. Let them do their job. You can't. I got to go to the meeting to talk about it. If you see a board member anywhere, they will listen to your concerns. Agree. That doesn't mean you should be inconsiderate with your time, but a majority of the time, a board member is willing to give you their phone number to say, give me a call when I have this moment so we can discuss it. Right. And that is important. We need to get back to that. It is time for us to stop with this politics. I'm 19 years old. I'm studying politics. I love politics. That's what I want to do for the rest of my life. But I am beyond upset that it is a thing in a school board, period. It shouldn't be. We shouldn't, it shouldn't matter if you're, again, Chad, it's the school board of education.
Yeah, that's what we're here for. Kids in the community.
Yes.
How to make it the best we can make it.
Yes.
Within the guardrails that we play in.
Exactly. And it shouldn't matter if you are one side or the other. It should matter if you are the best person to serve on that board and do it as well.
If you're a committed person and you want to put in the time to make the place better and help with solution,
That's what it's all about.
That's exactly.
And every person in the community some people have more time, some people have less time, but everybody can bring positive solutions better this place for the children.
Yes.
And that's how I try to treat everybody in the board movement with dignity and respect, whether they disagree or not disagree. You know, there's you can talk about, you wanted to talk about the majority of the votes, how they've been.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a huge thing I want to talk about. And we'll touch on that real quick, because something that I'm hearing a lot recently is that our board is a 5-4 board. There's no truth behind that. And another thing is something that's happening. This is a community board. This is people from our community. There's no reason we should ever be like throwing these random hats at we are people who are volunteering your time. You're volunteering time to do what's right.
Right.
After a board meeting, if you walk out into the parking lot and stay long enough, you see board members who were just arguing at a table, talking to each other, because at the end of the day, they want what is right. They don't have to agree all the time. You shouldn't agree all the time. You need people with diverse opinions. But when it comes to it, we look at our board, we have these arguments at our board level, which is okay. We should argue, we should say what we think is right. But then when it comes down to it, we're not a board. The vast majority of almost every vote that is from the time that I've been attending meetings, other than maybe 1 or 2 votes, it has been 9-0. And that's because of the work that goes in, the effort that goes in to bring an agenda to the table that 9 people can get behind. Yeah.
It's, that's not a simple task.
Yeah.
But the vast majority of time over the last 10 years.
Yeah. And a lot of people have taken that and made that into an opportunity for them to complain about. And that is not a bad thing. This is a great thing. It is. There are not a lot of boards that can take that and be happy about that and say that we have gotten to this point where we are all ready for this progress. And that's the problem, is a lot of people don't understand we are ready. I mean, the community is ready.
And let's address this. Nobody on that board is told how or what to vote.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
Yes. And we have seen that.
Discussion. It's, we have debate and everybody votes the way they choose to vote.
Yeah. And I think that is extremely important to note, because we have this idea that this board is not agreeing on things, or some people are going to stop this progress. That is widely unpopular. I mean, phase 1, 9-0. This bond, the bond was 8-0. It would have been 9-0. So this is something that we should be talking about is, okay, I get we're in election year and we're trying to paint a picture of who the bad guy is to get elected. It shouldn't be going down that path, but unfortunately it is. At the end of the day, everybody stands for the right thing.
Right.
Everybody agrees that we need to move forward with this. So now it is matter of fact of who is the honest person that will bring the integrity, that will show the board, this is what's right. Let's do it. Let's be responsible members of our community. And that is what we need. And I encourage everybody listening to this. If you feel something's wrong with this board, run for it. But my advice,
run for the right reasons.
Yes.
Or did
run for the right reasons. When I ran, I tried to run for the right reasons. But what I should have done was talk to the board members more. I was worried too. I didn't know what the right thing was
to
do.
learning to.
And it's a learning. But I want that to be something that people that if they want to run in the future, don't make that mistake either. Talk to all 9 of these board members and ask them what's going on. One little bit of information can change everything. And I think that was something that I can confidently say it's something that's wrong in our community, is the misinformation, because I fell for the traps. I fell for this misinformation. But when you are a member of a community who wants to be informed and is willing to work for that information, you could find it very easily. You could call a board director, you could ask them. You can call up our administration and say, hey, I'd like a meeting, talk to.
Have I ever not answered a question you asked?
You've answered every question. So I think that is something that people are worried of, this rejection that's not going to happen.
Right.
If anything, it might just get put off.
There's nothing to hide here. The only thing I'll say about me is some people would say, why you're not on social media? I just don't.
Yeah.
I just don't have time to do everything that I do and raise my kid and do the best job I can and everything I need to do. That's a distraction.
Yeah. And that was why I was really glad when we had this discussion about doing some kind of sit down
if it was going to be an article interview, if it was going to be whatever. I was glad that you were okay with doing this and wanted to do this. I mean, you wanted to do this. You were like, let's do it. This is needed. Like, we need a way for the information to be out there. And this is, I think, the best way for us to get there. And honestly, I think that we've covered the issues. I think that these are the concerns that our community has. The construction, the consolidation. I think that we talked about the construction a lot. And I'm sure that there were probably things that we missed that we should have touched on. If you haven't, then we can still, we can revisit, Chad, maybe in the future we do things that are specific and specific topics. Right. Yeah. And I think this will give people an idea to understand what's going on. And then they could come to me, they could tell me, I need to learn more about this. Can you do something? And I'm for it. I am all for it. Yes. And that is my goal with this. This is and you're providing an asset to our community. Yes. And that's the goal. Somebody needs to give something back to the community. I lost the election. This is my way of continuing to give back. I want people to be informed voters when they go to vote in November, when they go to vote in our primary, whenever they go to vote, wherever it is and whatever it is. We need to be informed on what our commissioners do, what our board does, what everybody does, because it is so important. I'm really glad that I was able to have this conversation with you. I think that this is really going to benefit our community. I think they're going to be able to hear that the school is not just an auditorium, not just a gym. All the other stuff that went into it, taxes, the bonds, you broke down the bonds for us. There's a plan. There's a plan. When I got on the board, there was no plan. That bond, there's a plan. Yes. And that's important. And now you got to take care of it. That's important. We have the plan. We're executing the plan. In my opinion, it's going successful, and I think it's going to be very successful. I look forward to it. I know you do. And I do believe that every single board member does, and I think every candidate does too. And I think at the end of the day, I know people got to say, what they got to say to get elected, but I think that everybody is going to be very satisfied when this vote. So I want to thank you for joining today. I thank you, everybody. This is the first podcast. This won't be the last. I'd like to get more leaders of our community on here, some commissioners, if I could, some more. I'd talk to more board members. Of course, I'm trying to stay away from candidates at the moment because I don't want it to look at any bias. But this is what we need. We need the community to be informed. We need everybody to hear straight from the sources of the information that's coming out. And if you don't believe the information that was provided here, go to the school, ask the school, ask our directors, ask anybody you want, and you'll probably hear the same story. Because there hasn't been many times that I've asked you a question where I haven't heard the same story from somebody else. So thank you a lot for joining, and it's been a pleasure. Chad, thanks for taking the time. Yeah, thank you.